Okay, I figured out my key to success. Now I'm locked in. I learned how to open doors like a locksmith.
Welcome back. You're now locked in with Ethan and Atwood. DK is on vacation. I'm Atwood. Killer to my left here, Ethan Daly, brown belt jiu-jitsu practitioner and I guess the main jiu-jitsu coach other than DK here at the Next Element Academy in Myrtle Beach. DK's out of town. I figured you'd be a good person to have on. You're also somebody we've kind of, been talking about having on. You do a lot here, not only with, coaching the adults, but, the kids as well. And you've been in the sport of jiu-jitsu for a long time.
Yeah, a long time, 13 and a half years.
13 and a half years. So tell me a little bit, about why you guys started in jiu-jitsu. Because if I understand what you've told me before, it started out with judo, right?
So no, judo was just a little bit of something I got to do once I started jiu-jitsu. But when I was a really little kid in New York, I started with traditional kung fu, Shaolin kung fu. So that was my real intro to martial arts when I was 5 years old or so, 4 or 5 years old. And I did that for quite a while. I got pretty far up in the belt system in kung fu, but even at an early age, I kind of knew it was not too practical. And then fast forward, moved to South Carolina, and there was no kung fu place. I kind of went down with some basketball, but I always missed having some kind of martial art in my life. And one day there was a couple MMA fights down the road from us, and a local gym here at the time won a bunch of their fights, and I went down there, checked it out, and it was from that point forward I kept with it. But really the big reason I looked for martial arts the second time in my life was bullied a lot throughout a lot of my middle school, high school area. So I found jiu-jitsu right after my freshman year, right between freshman and sophomore year, and it was just a good thing. I got bullied a lot in my life, and it was a really good pick me up and confidence boost.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the main reasons a majority of the people get involved in some sort of martial arts. Kids that aren't persuaded to do so by their parents, who probably at some point practiced a martial art, is because of bullying. That's one of the reasons why I got started in it whenever I was a kid. And really, me and DK have talked about it before, but any martial arts, it doesn't matter what it is, right? It can be beneficial for anybody. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say, and I know this from experience, trying that karate shit in the street will more than likely is going to get your ass beat, But there are key things that you can learn from karate,
Absolutely.
I don't want to say necessarily how to throw a punch, but kind of, sort of. Yeah, I learned whenever I was a kid that when you throw a punch, the only two knuckles that are supposed to land are these two. So little things like that, kicking, discipline being the main one, right?
Of course, yeah.
But so what are some things that you took away from the old kung fu that maybe you apply today in life?
Oh, man. I was pretty young, so a lot of it was a lot of katas, a lot of forms and stuff like that. So I think one of the big things was probably balance. That's really been a big thing in my life, probably since I really got early on. There's a lot of spinning techniques and a lot of leaping and aerial style kicks and stuff. So just kind of learning how to center my balance, stuff like that. And it's kind of been something that I've really taken with me all the way throughout jiu-jitsu as well. I even started with that little gymnastics when I was a really young kid. So even from when I was a little kid, I was always kind of flipping around and figuring out how to move my body.
Yeah. So you've been doing jiu-jitsu for how long, you said?
13 and a half years.
And you've been doing martial arts for?
Almost my whole life. It was probably a good, probably 4 or 5 years. There was a gap in there, but.
So what brought you, maybe you've already said this, but what brought you specifically to jiu-jitsu?
To jiu-jitsu? My freshman year, I actually tried to wrestle in high school. Only for a few weeks. I liked it, but I had one match. Didn't go too well. Got cradled in the second period. But grappling with everyone in the wrestling gym, I liked it, but I wanted to submit people. It's something I grew up watching wrestling and stuff, WWE, and I always liked the idea of being able to tap someone out. So soon as I found out there was a jiu-jitsu gym pretty close, I went and tried it out, and I think that's what it was. I like the idea of wrestling. I like the idea of grappling, but I think to actually have someone be able to like forfeit is what really drew me in.
Yeah, to kind of make somebody quit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how many times would you say that you've competed?
Oh man, can't
A lot,
count.
huh?
Yeah, there's I got a box upstairs in my attic just full of medals, but I've been competing
How many belts you got in that box?
quite a few. You got some
Nice.
Naga ones in there, got some good old Naga belts, but man, I've got a lot of cool trophies. I got like trophies and like some unique medals and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
man, I've definitely had well over 150, 160 matches over the course of my time.
And you've competed for what? I don't want to call them. I don't know if they're organizations, but
Oh man, IBJJF, International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation. Competed a lot through them. Obviously a lot of the local tournaments, Naga, New Breed, a lot of super fights. So Toro Cup, also shout out Toro Cup. They're always one of my favorite competitions to do. They know that. But Toro Cup's a good one. Carolina Combat League, Triumph Fight Academy. There's a lot of different organizations I try to compete through, and always testing myself in different rule sets and never letting myself really settle into one style. I want to kind of be a master of all.
yeah. Well, we talk about you competing, but there's, let's say, every couple of months or so, there's some sort of competition around here, and the academy here is growing and it's getting pretty big. So, you can speak to this more than I can, but recently it seems that whether it's Charleston, Charlotte, like this coming weekend, or Myrtle Beach, there's always just a gang of people and kids that are competing from here. So you do a lot of coaching, probably more so these days than you do competing. Is that like a fair statement?
Yeah, I think so. I've really transitioned my life in the last 2 years to really get myself to a point where I could coach full time, and now I even went a step further into making this my full time job. So whenever someone does have a competition, I'm able to go and coach. It's something that I think it's really important to have a coach really there with you, because you might have a good day, you might have a bad day. It could be your worst day of your life, and you never know. But having someone there by your side is always the way to do it. So.
Yeah, and we got this weekend in Charlotte. It is New Breed,
New
right?
Breed, yeah.
So how many people do we have going up there?
Oh man, we got probably like 8 or 9 kids, and then we got like six or 7 adults, something like that. So we have a decent little crowd going to Charlotte. Charlotte's always a great place to compete too. They have a very, very big jiu-jitsu scene. So there's a lot of different gyms, a lot of different styles. So whenever we get a chance to go out to Charlotte, it's usually a really good learning and a really good growing.
Now, are you driving up there and back the same day?
Of course.
I know.
I love driving.
I don't get that shit. When Phil was telling me the other day that you guys, when you competed in Atlanta, you drove up there and then competed and then drove back in the same day.
Yeah.
Blows my mind.
Yeah, we've done other ones too, where like we've competed in Orlando, like we competed in the morning and then just like shot straight back. And this is
I could see that, right? But driving there, then competing, and then driving back in the same day.
Yeah, I think we've done that in Atlanta like probably 3 or 4 times now.
Damn.
Those day trips.
Dude, because that's a solid at least 12 hours of driving.
Oh yeah, it's 12 hours.
But
drive
it's probably
time.
more so like 13 and a half, 14.
Yeah, you're talking about gas stops, food stop. I mean,
Well, not only that, I just mean driving in the car,
Yeah,
right? And then you have to compete, and then sometimes I would imagine, there's some big brackets, especially in big cities like that. So you're probably at the venue for what, like 6 hours?
long
Dude,
time.
fuck that, man. That is too much.
That's
too much, dude. I don't know how you guys do that shit. That just being in the car that long on a day where I'm about to put my body through all that stress and fatigue and then have to get back in the car? Nah.
To me, it's like I'm not working a normal job. So to me, it's just, I get to do my passion. I get to go drive and do what I love. And, man, you can't beat that. So if a drive is the sacrifice, I'm down for it.
Right. I feel you. So let's talk about Triumph. That's a tournament you have coming up. A pretty decent purse for you on the line. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I'm competing this in 2 weekends at Triumph Fight Academy for Clash for Cash. It's a 16-man tournament, under 170 pounds. but absolute style when it comes to skill level. So it could be any skill level under 170 pounds, 16-man bracket, invitation only. So a lot of people, we all either had to get invited on or you had to put an application and get a spot on. So it's a 16-man bracket of some really good guys. There's a lot of people in there with some ADCC experience, not just in the opens, but in the
Any
trials.
like names that jiu-jitsu guys would know of?
I'd say there's a lot of up-and-comers on there. So if you're watching the scene, there's definitely some people. I believe there's Cade Saidos. I think I'm saying his last name right, but he's a good prospect out there. He placed top 8 at East Coast Trials, so he's got a couple good names under his belt. So that's definitely one of the names I'm looking to take out. Is that there's a lot of good people in this bracket. So a lot of good people from South Carolina. There's a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's a couple black belts in there from South Carolina that I really haven't had the chance or opportunity to compete against. So there's a lot of firsts for me in this tournament, and that's what gets me excited.
And what weight are you right now?
I'm walking around at like 152, so I'm probably going to be the lightest guy in the bracket.
Damn, so you're not even looking to put on any kind of...
I just do train every day the way I do, and I'll go out there and execute the same way I do.
Well, the good thing about that is you can eat very well.
Yes.
So you'll have get all the calories and
you have to be fully hydrated, get to
right.
be, fully nourished, ready to go. So I'm really excited.
Well, that's cool, man. What would you say your strengths are in jiu-jitsu? Like I know because I'd say I somewhat know because I've rolled with you a good bit. But like, what would you say that your strengths are? Your favorite things to play, and after you mention those, who are some of the people that you watched, early on in your jiu-jitsu career, and kind of took some pages from their book?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who knows me, I'm a really big guard player. I'm very dominant on the bottom, not just in submissions from the bottom, but I'm always sweeping from the bottom. I'm always attacking from the bottom. I have good wrestle ups. I've worked really hard over the last few years, not just few years, but almost half a decade to really hone in a lot of the holes in my game, which used to be like top pressure and a lot of passing, and now those are some of my most dominant positions. So I'm really excited to kind of go out and show off a lot of the new areas of my game that used to be holes and now they're strengths. So I really don't feel like I have too many bad spots right now, but there's been a lot of people. I play a lot of butterfly guard. So Adam Morzinski's been a really cool person to watch. I've been to a seminar with him, got to do a lot of training with him after the seminar. Only a few people got to do that, so it was a really fun experience for that. There's a lot of people out there like Keenan Cornelius that I really like. Something that I'm really big on with my game in jiu-jitsu is to be really unique, be myself. And that's something there's an old video that Keenan Cornelius was on, and it was just a saying that he said at the time, but he said, like some of the best guys in the world, they're not emulating other people's styles. It's their style, it's their uniqueness that got them there. So I've never tried to take my game and mirror it after someone. I want it to be Ethan's game, and I want people to be like, that's Ethan's style.
Right.
So I try to do my best to really keep it unique and not do anything that other people do, really.
So what's some of the shit that you hate?
Some of the stuff I hate? Oh,
Yeah.
man. Like in what, though? In jiu-jitsu or?
Yeah. Just, there's got to be something that, whether it's maybe a style that people have that you just hate, and you could hate it because you just don't fucking like it, or you can hate it because it gives you trouble, just.
Yeah, I'll use a couple of examples that have been a hot topic lately anyway, but
Okay.
It's something I believe in too, but I'm sure you've seen the whole Aljo thing
I knew
as
that was coming.
as
Yeah,
recently. Right. So I do a lot of refereeing whenever I get the opportunities to.
Yeah.
So when you do
Jiu-jitsu refereeing.
jiu-jitsu referee, yes sir. Anytime you do a jiu-jitsu match, you're signing up for a jiu-jitsu rule set, and just like anyone who's good at what they do, especially in competition, they're going to exploit any rules or any flaws in the rule set, right? So if you sign up for a jiu-jitsu match and the person pulls guard in front of you, if you can't get past their guard, what's the difference? A lot of people like to complain, you can't take someone down. Well, what would happen? You take someone down, obviously you got the opportunity to land past the guard, you can be in side control, whatever, but
Right.
a lot of the times you're going to end up in someone's guard, and if you couldn't pass it standing, you're probably going to have a good amount good amount of trouble passing it on the ground anyway.
Yeah.
So especially when I referee, something I cannot stand is a 5-minute match of just wrestling attempts, but just half-ass. No one's really trying. You know, there's some stalling rules in there anyway to kind of prevent it. But especially when you're wrestling like white belt matches at like a local tournament, you know, sometimes they only have 1 or 2 matches, so you don't want to be the guy that just takes away their
Yeah, and they're both
match.
hesitant to shoot because they're scared of the position that they could end up in. I mean, I was there.
Yeah,
I
so
know
like,
exactly how they feel.
so that's probably like that's my most annoying thing is when people, you know, want to put so much wrestling emphasis when the sport we're doing is jiu-jitsu. You know, obviously, every aspect of grappling, whether it's judo, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, they're all very useful and applicable in certain positions. But if all you can do is stand for 5 minutes and you're too scared to get the jiu-jitsu started, then why'd you sign up for the jiu-jitsu match?
Yeah, well, that's kind of how I felt too, like watching Aljamain complain. You know, it's like, first of all, if you're a jiu-jitsu guy and you don't really have much wrestling experience, from the advice that the brown belts gave me before I competed, right? They're like, well, if you know he's a wrestler, pull guard. They're like, there's no point, and when I say brown belts, I mean Jeff and Phil. Like, there's no point in wrestling with a wrestler if you haven't wrestled, because you're just going to end up on your back, more than likely. So if you pull guard and you do it aggressively, then whenever you do it, you know, you could end up in a good position, whether you're sweeping or advice that Jeff gave me. He's like, just attack their neck. He's like, wrestlers don't know what to do in a guillotine, you know? And I don't know if you remember, but one of my no-gi matches, I was with a wrestler, and we were kind of locked up, and he did like a shoulder shuck and tried to take my back, and then I rolled and kind of swept him, and then I was on top. It was like north. He was turtled up, and it was north-south, and you remember I went for that anaconda, right? And then I was able to get him in the guillotine from that, because I remember hearing you say, I had the anaconda on him, and I had a leg over. You're like, Atwood, it's going to be difficult to finish it from here. Yeah. And then, so you're over here saying that, and I hear DK off to the side, and he was like, switch to the guillotine. So I switched to the guillotine, and going into that tournament, this isn't an excuse by any means, but going into that tournament, I had tendonitis in both arms. Yeah. So my arms were, not only were they just, because I was like really squeezing, right? They were burnt from that, but they were, oh my God, they were on fire, dude. Oh, so he ended up getting out of it. But I remember Jeff telling me before the tournament, because I did what DK told me not to do, and I looked at who I was, you know, supposed to be going against, and I just looked him up to see if I could find anything on him. Yeah. And so I found his Facebook, and, you know, saw he was a high school wrestler. But yeah, so I couldn't finish with the guillotine. But, you know, one thing, going back to how I went off on that rant, is I wish I would have just pulled guard, because he ended up getting 2 points for a takedown. And so now I'm down right off the bat, you know. So when Aljamain is complaining, like you said, he signed up for this shit. He knew that it wasn't going to be a wrestling match. And I didn't watch the whole match, but I saw the highlights, and it looked like he was just standing up the whole time, and the dude like kind of scooting towards him. I mean, he was trying to pass guard but couldn't.
Yeah, like I had a few submission attempts. You know, Aljo was trying to pass, but you know, a good guard player, it takes a lot. Passing is probably one of the hardest aspects, I think, of jiu-jitsu. And then having a good passing game.
With a good guard player, too, like, I would imagine if the person's standing up trying to pass, they're going to attack the feet.
Yeah,
you know,
the legs. They're going to be trying to off-balance you. They're going to be attacking the feet. They're going to be doing a lot of stuff to keep you from just staying stagnant. And you know, if all you're doing is switching side to side, you're trying to shuffle in and out, try to get some outside passing going, and you're not following up by doing some inside passing, you know, there's a lot of stuff you can do to kind of break through those walls and like chink away at the armor. But you know, a lot of times, especially with Aljo, you know, he gets on the mic, tries to get as much attention as possible. Yeah, they're talking about, you know, if I was these jiu-jitsu guys, they wouldn't be able to hang in a street fight. But again, it's a jiu-jitsu match. We're not in a street fight.
Yeah, and you know, you want to know something? Like that statement might be true against like a professional fighter, but you take the average person, if they're in a street fight in jiu-jitsu, like, you know, jiu-jitsu guy is going to have way more tools, because there's a lot of things that you can do in jiu-jitsu where you're not going to you won't be able to get hit when you're in that position. Yeah. Or if you are getting hit, it's not going to be strong enough strike to, like, you know, put the average person out.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, you can get popped if you're on their back, but also if you like tuck your chin or like go to the other side of their head, then what do they have? You know what I mean?
They might catch a couple little like
Yeah,
grazes,
but
nothing's gonna like stop you from being on the back or
Right.
stop you from controlling.
It's not a fight-ending strike. And I saw that after he did all that complaining, he signed to grapple against Chase Hooper.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, you didn't see that?
No, I didn't
Yeah, he's
see
gonna grapple against Chase. What does he think is gonna happen there?
That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, well, I could tell you what's gonna happen. Chase is probably gonna shoot for like some sort of Imanari roll and go for the legs. It's like he does that in his UFC fights, So, yeah, that's gonna be interesting. But besides that, and from like a reffing standpoint for you, like what are just some things that you've maybe? Here's a good one. Let's talk about gym etiquette.
Ooh,
some things you hate seeing on the mat
This is my
here at the
favorite.
academy. Go ahead.
Ooh, here at the academy.
Well, it doesn't have to be here, but just when when you're training.
Yeah. Obviously, everyone who rolls in any of the classes that I run or help run with DK, everyone knows one of my biggest pet peeves is just courtesy on the mats, right? Like your mat space. Sometimes we'll get a lot of people in. It might be their first day. It might not be. Maybe they came from a gym that they didn't really put too much emphasis on the etiquette. But one of the things is if you're a large human being, you got long legs, you got long arms. If you go to sprawl and there's someone's face right behind you, you're taking time off someone's training time. If you don't know, if you're trying to blast double someone across the mat, well, it takes two to tango. If I'm going to double leg you, I know what lane I'm going to be shooting in. I got to make sure no one's behind me. So just when people kind of like don't respect the space, or on the other hand, when upper belts will kind of like abuse their kind of space, they think that like there's a force field around them, and anyone who enters is like got it kicked out.
Yeah.
It's just common courtesy. We're all trying to get better. We're all trying to share the mat space. So sometimes it's just easy to just slide over. So like that's definitely one of the things. But I think we do a pretty good job of like keeping most of the etiquette here. Like bare feet off the mat, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'd say I've trained in a lot of places too, where mopping the mats, blowing it off, cleaning, just simple cleaning.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that. So like, just gym cleanliness is a huge thing to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Anytime I go, or if I visit somewhere, I go to some like simple things, right? If like the toilet's crappy looking, there's pink all over the shower, like just like hard stains and stuff like that. Like stuff like that. If I see that, it's gonna like really deter me from like wanting to come back. Like even if like the training is like really good, like if the hygiene and the quality of like the the mats are not that great, I'm gonna probably shy away from going back.
So cleanliness a big thing for you, and I guess spatial awareness on the mats. But like, what are some things like when you think of a list of do nots, do's and do nots, right? When you think of the do nots on the mat, maybe there's somebody that's watching, that's just starting or whatever. What were some things that you would tell them? Don't do these on the mat.
Don't do these
in training.
I mean, there's a lot of little things, man. It can range all over the place, but things like knowing how to tap, simple, and like really things that you might not even think about, but like like do's and don'ts are gonna be like don't tap the mat.
When you said knowing how to tap, that's exactly what I thought of.
Like
They've got to be able to feel it.
Yeah, like the music's pumping, everyone's
right.
going. But if you tap the ground, man, no one feels it, and there's a good chance you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
Stuff like that though. There's a lot of do's and don'ts. Depending on like how big you are, kind of gauge who you're gonna train with, right? Not saying you shouldn't train with big people. I think it's very very you should,
but it has to be beneficial for both parties, right?
Course,
so if you're 205 pounds and say you're training with me like 165 to 170, if I'm the bigger guy, right? And by all means, this isn't taking it easy on anybody, but it has to be, they call it a dance partner for a reason.
Yeah.
The guy that's 205, maybe don't try to play fat jitsu and just lay on him and hold him in one spot. Let him work, because I'm already like going into that role knowing I'm going to have to try a little bit harder than this guy. I really do believe that technique will, you can be way smaller and technique will beat, the weight advantage. I think that it can level out depending, right?
Yeah.
But like, maybe allow the guy that's a lot lighter than you to work, and not just fucking lay on him, because I can't stand that, dude.
Yeah, and I say it a lot. Like, I always say it in the gym, but like, it takes two to tango. Like,
Yeah.
whether it's like courtesy on the mat, like watching your space, or just even coming down and rolling. It takes two to tango. If you're the smaller guy, use your technique, do it, trust in it, and
You kind of have to at that point,
yeah,
right?
You obviously
Like,
have to, but a lot of times too, like, you might be afraid to like try a move just because it might load a little extra weight on you compared to someone who's
Yep.
around your size. But if both people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, the big guy can put the weight on the smaller guy, and both guys can still move. It's only a problem when, like, if you're the bigger guy and you're just holding someone down, you're not doing anything. But vice versa, maybe that big guy's playing guard. If you're the small guy and you're too scared to get in there because you're scared of getting pulled in, it's also
Right.
going to be a problem. So it almost takes two to tango, right? It's a dance. We're in training. We're trying to not just beat each other up, but we're also trying to like figure out how to apply the different moves to the different body types. And
right. Well, we want to beat each other up, but in doing so, we're trying to build each other up as well, right?
Yeah.
And I just feel like sometimes there'll be a big heavy dude, and he'll he gets to side control, and he doesn't try to isolate an arm. He just sits there, whether he's tired or whatever, right? I mean, I know it's happened to me before, and I see it happen sometimes. But like, then again, everybody's different, But that's probably one of my biggest things. Is like, hey, like, I get it, you're a lot bigger than me, but like, let me work. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, you can work too, right? Like, we're here to help each other, but at least just like and that's something I really appreciate with guys like you. Like, you're not bigger than me, but obviously you've been doing it a lot longer. Your technique, leaps and bounds better. But we'll have hard rolls, but you let me work, because that's the only way I'm going to learn.
Of course, yeah.
Right? Like, oh, hey, you might have let me pass or transition here, but now I just put myself in a situation that maybe you set a trap for me. I was going to wrestle up and you whizzer, or whatever the case. It's like, those are the roles that I find beneficial. And that's really like, I have those roles with you and, obviously people that are way better than me. And then I go back down to somebody that's more my size and skill level. And that's how I get to gauge, in my opinion, like how my progress.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when you get people that just dominate and they don't give you anything, it's just like, fuck, well, I'm not learning.
I was gonna say, there's obviously a time and a place, like especially like maybe like competition training, stuff that where you're gonna want
Right.
to smash, but like it just comes down to being a martial artist, right? Like if you have the power and ability to do that to someone, if that's all you do, well, you're hurting yourself because you're not gonna ever learn some new ways, some different pathways. And if you have that much power and ability to control the round, you can kind of help guide someone in the right direction. Maybe we've been working on passing in the gym. Maybe we've been working on knee cut passing specifically. Like, that person might not be able to see that knee cut pass on you ever, right? Because you're so good at keeping them away. But I have that amount of power, that amount of like control. I'm gonna try to let you get into that area and let you see a spot that, especially if we've been working on it, apply it.
Right.
So I think the better you get, you definitely owe it to not just yourself, but the rest of your training partners to like.
Yeah.
Help build.
And, if you allow that person an e-cut pass, then that gives you something to also, it's like, all right, well, they're in this position. Now let me work on getting out of it. It's a dance, and both parties should be winning because they're learning from it. And one thing that I'll say too is like ego, right? Like, some dudes are like, oh, this dude's way smaller than me. I can't let him tap me. They don't think in their head like, yo, this is just training. Like, who fucking cares?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really big thing when it comes down to like etiquette. Mat etiquette is, and also I would like to preface this, that it's not always like, sometimes, like you said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be competition training. Like, there'll be some times where whenever I'm dapping somebody up before, it's like, don't take it easy on me. Like,
Oh, yeah, you've
grind
definitely
it.
said that to
Like,
me a bunch.
make me grind because that's what I need right now. You know. And then there's other times where I'll dap up and be like, hey man, I'm just going light. You know, whether I'm like nursing like a minor injury or whether I'm just fucking tired after however many rounds that we've just gone. Just like, yeah, I'm just going light this round. You know.
Yeah.
But I also think that all that discipline just comes down to time on the mat. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there are bigger dudes in here that I can roll with that are good competitive roles because they're allowing me to work. And then there's maybe places where I allow them to work, you know, where I might end up in a good position. And, you know, that just, I don't know, man. It's just, I guess it just comes down to discipline. And the more you do it, the better you can get. Kind of like whenever you're doing Muay Thai or boxing and you start to spar and you have to gauge how hard you go. You know, I had that issue whenever I was up in Florence a couple weeks ago. Clay actually told me, he's like, hey man, you were kicking pretty hard. And it's not because I was trying to prove anything. It's just because this is my first time doing it. Right. And I was like, I don't know how hard I'm supposed, and I wasn't like kicking as hard as I could, but I was probably going like, you know, 50 to 60%, which I only needed to probably go like, you know, 30 to 40,
Yeah.
you know? So, and it's not always the fault of, it just could just be that you're new to it. Like white belts. I know I was this way, like spazzy.
Oh yeah.
You know?
It's unavoidable. It's just
Right.
part of like humans have like zero natural like defense. You know, we have like no offensive skills. You know, out the womb we got nothing. So like,
Yeah.
most people don't know how to move forward or how to react in a way, and spazzy's just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Got to get through it. And, but luckily, you have a good training partner around you. You can help like negate it a little bit. But if you've ever been to a gym where they kind of let the spazziness run rampant, that's when it's a scary room.
That's when people get hurt.
Yeah.
Especially white belts, right? And people that are new, they get hurt and then they don't come back.
Yeah,
You know?
and there was a lot of that. I think there was a lot of that when I first started training, like here in Myrtle Beach. Not that like the level was bad at all, but just like obviously like anything else, the longer you do something, the higher the level gets. And the level that it was at when I first started was a very, if you make it through the cracks, good for you, keep
Right.
going. But there was no building up of a lot of athletes, and I think that's why, especially like when I first started, there was a lot of people that didn't make it. There's a lot of people that don't make it anyway. It's a hard sport. It takes a lot of time to progress through it. But man, if people would just let it run rampant, people would be spazzing and hurting each other, and it's too dangerous of a room. It's not worth the money if you're going to be, you know, it's a business at the end of the day. If you spend money, you don't want to go in there and get wrecked every time you come in. Not just wrecked technically, but wrecked, you know, physically.
Well, it's a big difference when, you know, and again, discipline, experience, where, you know, say somebody who's experienced gets a new guy and side mount, puts him in an Americana or something like that, you know, and just reaps it. You know, first of all, dickhead move, right? And, you know, there's probably going to be a higher belt or somebody that's better than you that sees that and polices it themselves the next round, which happens. I won't say it happens a lot, but like me and DK have talked about that too. In good atmosphere, training atmospheres, those things will police themselves, you know? But that could happen to somebody that's new and they're just like, man, fuck this. Like, one, they could be like, fuck this place, I'm going to go train somewhere else and try it. Or they can be like, fuck this sport. You know, it's like my third time here and now my shoulder's wrecked, you know? So
I think that's why, like, especially like anytime we have like trials come in, we have people trying out classes, we really go out of our way to make sure that like, if you've never rolled before, you're put with someone who's like very experienced that's going to walk you through how to do it. You know, you're never going to like, it should never be like a trial guy, spazzy white belt. You know, like that's just a recipe for disaster. And you know, if as long as you watch it, you're kind of policing it, like you said. You know, that kind of thing kind of gets weeded out really early, so people usually aren't getting too thrashed around in that first, you know, first few weeks, first few months of the
one thing I don't mind rolling with people when it's their first time or they've only been doing it a couple weeks, and not because I I don't even I never even try to submit those people. I just let them work because it helps. I mean, like I said earlier, it helps me, right? Like you get somebody who's kind of they're new and maybe a little spazzy themselves. They're unpredictable. You don't know what
100%.
the hell they're going to do because they don't even know what to do. So I just always tell them, like, just do what feels natural, and I'm going to let you work, right? And then if afterwards, if I can find a place, like say I get them in my guard and they can't get out, well, tell them how to get out of it. Let them work it a little bit, drill it a couple times. Like I feel like that's the best way to approach those things, but I enjoy doing that, man.
I enjoyed it for a long time. Obviously now we have a lot of students and I'm kind of in a coaching position.
Right,
So
right.
a lot of times we have some people that are willing to do it, but for a long time, especially when we opened the gym here, that was kind of my position. Someone brand new would come in and I'd have to kind of help walk them through. But
Yeah.
even before that, I really enjoyed always, if I had a chance to roll someone on their first day or whatever, not to mess them up, not to beat them up, but like it's just an honest look of like what someone who's never done anything, how, like you said, they're unpredictable. What are they going to do to react? Because
Yeah.
again, as humans, we don't really have like a natural defense system. So people kind of tend to do the same mistakes, or the patterns are very similar. So if I get an opportunity to see that with someone who's brand new, I think if you ever have to use it in self-defense, you'll be pretty adept to handle any kind of dynamic
Mm-hmm.
you might run into.
If so two things I want to ask you real quick. So first would be, in your opinion, right, in your experience, give me 3 of each, 3 do's and don'ts to somebody who's new to jiu-jitsu and they're starting out in terms of etiquette on the mat. Like 3 things that they should not do, and then 3 things that they should do or try,
Okay. 3 things they should not do. Let's say number 1, obviously, is my number 1 rule at the academy in general, but no bare feet off the mat. That's obviously the quickest way to cause some kind of ringworm, any kind of skin infection, and that's just taking time off your training partner's training time. And
it's fucking annoying.
Yeah,
Super annoying to get rid of.
Yeah, it's bad. But it's part of the sport, and unfortunately, as long as you do a good job, it's pretty easy to keep that down. A couple more things you probably shouldn't do. If you're just starting out, asking about promotions. That's definitely that's definitely one of those things that, like, no one's gonna say like, you're not getting anything, but like that definitely adds a little time, right? You don't want to progress too fast through the ranks. You want to, especially you want to put trust in your coach, and you should have the trust in your coach to advance you correctly.
When it's the right time for you.
But kind of questioning your coach's ability to gauge progression is
right.
It's kind of hits hard in coaches.
Yeah.
So I definitely wouldn't do that. And then a third thing is just injure your partner, and that's something that's like easy, right? We're training. If I pick someone up above my head and try to slam them, you're off the mat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just being careful, right? Be careful of your partners. So don't try to injure anyone. But 3 things to do: ask questions. You cannot ask enough questions. If you're in a position to ask a question, any good coach should be able to give you a direct answer right then and there. I've definitely seen in my days some coaches kind of like ignore, kind of push questions away. But a good coach will either help you directly, or if they don't know the answer, they'll help you out. So push you in the right direction to get the answer.
Right on.
Get the question answered. I hate these on-the-spot questions. I'm terrible with them. But some other things to do. Invest in good training gear. I don't think you have to break the bank, but especially if you're starting out, we're talking about normal clothes. You get like gym shorts or stuff at Walmart, anywhere. They're going to get kind of dingy pretty quick. They get smells and stuff like that. So investing in good quality equipment is going to help you like save money in the long run, and just, you feel better. You look good. You feel good. You usually compete well. And then if we're going to do a third thing, is just diet, mobility, just some controllable things that you have over your life. Because if you're going to do this sport, I think you can start, regardless if you're obese and overweight or you've had surgeries or whatever it is that you're running into. This sport is incredibly unique, and you can work around anything. And the longer you do this, the more you're going to want to do it. You're going to have to put your health in the right line. So especially early on, if it's something you kind of like right off the bat, I'm going to tell people definitely work on your mobility, definitely work on your just like overall health, diet. Make sure you're able to do this for as demanding as it is. If you want to do it and you're passionate about it, you're going to want to do it a bunch. So you're going to definitely have to be able to fuel your body to do so.
One thing I'll add to the don'ts in terms of cleanliness is, one, wash your damn gi. Wash your gi. And listen, if you do 2 times a day.
Oh, no, you got to have 2 gis.
Yeah. You need to have 2 gis, because there might be somebody else doing 2 times a day, and you might not think that person will be able to tell, but there is a smell. There is a certain odor where you just know somebody didn't wash their shit. And so for me, it's wash your shit. I know a lot of people don't wash their belts. I wash mine every now and then. Fuck all that shit. I'll wash my belt. But 2 is brush your damn teeth, or mint, gum, something. Because you might not know it, but your breath does stink, and somebody is going to have to smell that shit. And there's been times where I've wanted to tap just from somebody's breath. So and deodorant too. Please, it just comes down to hygiene. The same way like these mats have hygiene because we wash them after every single class. They're getting washed multiple times a day. Wash your ass, because it sucks.
Man, I one time I was training in a place that there was like a gi corner, and this is like old school, but like there was a gi corner.
They would just put their dirty gis to be washed.
Yeah, for like the whole, not even to be washed. Oh, it was just like people weren't taking their gis home to wash, so they would just be there for a week.
Oh, that's disgusting,
2-3 weeks, and it was the norm. So like, when I first started, I was a 15-year-old kid, so like I didn't really know, like, I didn't really question, like, is that unsanitary or not? And like people would even tell you when you first started training, like, yeah, just leave your gi here, and it'll be fine. And
how many cases of ringworm did you deal with?
I've seen some of the nastiest ringworm you've ever seen.
Question, and I just thought about this. Is that mic right in front of your face? Can they even see your face?
I don't know.
Try taking the stand and moving it back like this. A little bit further back. Yeah. And then well, you might be able to move it closer, like move the mic actually closer to you. Yeah. There you go. That's probably better. So if his face was blocked the entire time, I apologize. I should have. I'm a veteran here.
I'm not that good looking anyway, so it's not really too big of a problem.
They're probably looking at your feet anyway.
And dude, I work on my foot health too. I wear these Vivo barefoots every day. I'm always stretching out my feet. So I mean, if anyone should be selling some feet pics,
hey, well, you don't fucked up.
I did.
You don't fucked up, because at the beginning of this episode,
it's gonna go.
At the beginning of this episode, your Instagram handle was above your head, so you fucked up, my friend. But moving on to the other thing I wanted to ask you about is, I've done this for. See, I did it for Tony. I did it for DK. I might even ask Kenny Florian this. Since you're high level, right? When you think of the different belt, the different ranks, there's 5 of them, obviously: white, blue, purple, brown, black. If you could think of a word to describe white belt, the journey of a white belt, in one word, what would that be?
That's a hard question. In one word.
Yeah, one word that just encompasses a white belt. A white belt's journey.
I mean, just ocean.
Huh?
Ocean.
Ocean?
Ocean.
The fuck does that even mean?
It's waves, man. As a white belt, there's you just got your blue belt, so you spend a little bit of time at white belt.
Yeah.
And waves. It's like this for all belt colors, but I think really at white belt. Because it's such a broad, you could be a white belt and have no experience, or you could be a collegiate wrestler and come into the gym and be a white belt. So like, you never know who you're going to go against. So that being the hammer and being the nail is so vastly just in waves.
That's interesting.
I think, there's joyous times and there's real down times as a white belt. You're going to be driving home with the music off some nights.
Oh, yeah.
And some nights you're going to go home and
I drove home with the music off one night and the window down, and it was raining, bro. I was thank God I have leather seats. I was just letting the rain just pelt me in the face, dude.
It'd be like that sometimes.
You say that, but yeah, out of all the people I've asked, they've all generally said the same thing, but that was a very unique answer. So everybody else just said survival.
Okay.
You know, it's just about survival, but yeah, that was a very interesting answer because it's 100% spot on. And there was even times where I would message DK and like, hey man, like might have asked you before, I'm not sure, but like, I don't feel like I'm getting any better. You know, like, is there something that, you know, you've done to help you get out of this rut? I mean, obviously his response to me was, you just got to keep coming, man. Like, you just got to show up.
I think the reason I really picked like waves or ocean is because like when you really think about it, it's not just like waves aren't just progressive, right? They regress and then come and then they regress.
Yeah.
But you're always going further.
Yeah.
But you do have to take steps back to go further.
That was some Bruce Lee shit.
Yeah, man.
Put the water in the
Been
cup.
a martial arts my whole life, man.
All right, so white belt. We'll just say waves, right?
Yeah,
because
waves.
It just sounds cooler than ocean.
It
What about blue belt?
Blue belt? One word?
Yeah.
Just learn.
Okay.
I mean, I really think that there's not much else to it. Like, white belt to blue belt, you should have, you know, depending on your coach and depending on, like, what the standards are, DK having the highest standards I think I've ever seen when it comes to belts, and that's not really a joke. I'll kind of go back on the blue belt thing, but one of the things I really loved about DK as a coach and when I was a white belt and blue belt, I always dreamed of like, I think it would be the coolest thing to get like a black belt from Andre Galvao or a black belt from whoever, you know, like the current world champion was at the time. But really over the years, DK has such a high standard on belts that it is so ridiculously hard to progress that I think it's good. So blue belt should be learned, right? White belt, you learned how to do all the basics. You should be able to shrimp. You should be able to move your body.
Yeah.
Your mobility should have kind of gotten taken care of. Not 100%, but you should at least be on the right track, right? All those little things that will get you ready for blue belt. Once you hit blue belt, you should be every single day trying to learn everything you can, learning every guard you can, every sweep you can, because when you start getting into those other belts, it gets less and less. There's less and less to learn. Not that there's ever a mastery of it, but
right.
you know, blue belt's a fun time, so learn. You know, just learn as much as you can.
Okay, so white belt, waves, blue belt, learn or learning, whatever, however you want to say it. Purple.
Attack.
Okay, so at purple is when you just start finding your style.
Yeah, I think you should really start relentlessly attacking, right? That's most people have their guards figured out by purple belt, so that's when I said earlier on, I think I said passing is one of the hardest aspects, I think, of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
purple belt.
I struggle with that.
Yeah, it's hard, right? And I think like once you get to purple belt, you have the skills to kind of like confidently start to really try to pass. Not that you won't be good at passing earlier on, but for the vast majority, I think purple belt's when you start to really see like passing. So, you know, learning how to like hit attacks and really chain them together, like arm bars and triangles go well together, right? Like triangle and omoplata, just stuff like that. Like whenever you can link submissions together, really start attacking. You're gonna really start to get a broad understanding of like what your unique skill set is and how you can combine them with other areas.
Okay, so attack for purple. What about brown?
Refine.
Okay,
I think
just refining all the skills that you've already learned and sharpening your tools, basically.
Yeah, I think you know they say like I think you even say for purple, but like purple belts have about the same amount of knowledge as a black belt when it comes to like skill set, or you know, but maybe how to apply it is completely different. The black belt knows how to apply everything perfectly. So, you know, if you've been doing all your due diligence throughout the belt colors, by the time you get to brown, you should be
8, 9 years in.
Yeah, you know, you've had some time on the mat. I'm not saying step back, but sometimes instead of just trying to learn, it's time to step back a little bit. Kind of see, you know, find out what your holes are. Find out, you know, if you're going to be a black belt, are you good on a guillotine on one side but not the other? There's little things, you know, little just things that make a difference between a brown and a black belt. So that's kind of where I find myself right now, refining any little spot that I can find that needs addressed. It's getting addressed.
And how much? Oh, real quick. So black. So what would your?
I haven't been there yet, but I've been around it long enough, I guess. I mean, one word, right? I guess start over would be what I essentially want to use, but for using one word, enjoy. I think. I mean, I haven't made it there yet, but
Well, even DK's even said that there's other schools where you would be a black belt,
Yeah.
and I think that I I think that if you weren't so bent on competing all the time, that you might have a black belt already.
I
But
believe that.
but and DK kind of even alluded to it at the promotion ceremony, But you're a guy, you compete often, and you like to do it, and you know, I think that DK just wants to encourage you to keep competing, and he said the
Yeah.
same thing about Phil. Like, you guys are very good, and I mean, then again, you take this as a grain of salt, right? Because I'm just a fresh blue belt. Like, what do I really know in the grand scheme of things in terms of like being good? But I think that if I'm speaking to you and Phil, y'all's resumes kind of speak for themselves too. Like, you've competed a whole lot, and leads me to another question that I just had. How, when it comes down to training, especially training for a long time, right? Do you think competing is necessary to progressing? I don't want to say really at like a faster rate, but like, do you feel like competing is necessary, that everybody should at least give it a try?
Yeah. What I say might hurt some feelings, but there's people look at jiu-jitsu as self-defense. Some people look at competition and sport jiu-jitsu and everything. I love sport jiu-jitsu. It's what I always liked. I think if you're doing this sport, you're at the bare minimum, you're doing it for self-defense. So
Yeah.
there's nothing that's going to recreate that adrenaline rush, that heavy, hot breathing, everything that you can think of stress-wise is happening at one time, and then having to fight another resisting body and make your techniques work. Yeah, I think everyone should compete at least once, even if it's just one time.
Right.
I think you should put jiu-jitsu into a real perspective, get a real idea. Because even if you don't want to compete ever again, I think at least one time will give you the right direction of how to train, right? Because if you never try, right? If you just, and this is like a fictional character that no one here does this, but let's say you were to come to class, but you never roll, you just do technique, or whatever it might be. You might just do private lessons, but if you're not really attacking other people and feeling what it's like, you're never gonna know.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree.
No, I think everyone should compete at least once.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, when they say that they don't want to compete at all, or they don't want to compete like in the beginning, they just want to wait until like they're already like in their minds good. It could come down to maybe that's just a bit of an ego and a fear of not necessarily being looking good in other people's eyes, but looking good like in your own expectations of yourself. And I honestly, I struggled with that a little bit. Like, it was, I told myself when I started, like, at some point I'll compete just to do it, right? To see what it's like. But I was like, man, I don't know if I wanted, like, maybe I'll wait, because whenever I found out with like white belts, right? Like, and I guess it's any belt, but they don't have classes based on how many stripes you have. Like, as long as you have the belt, like, so I could be training for 6 months, right? Have no stripes, and then go to have matches against 4-stripe white belts that have been training for almost 2 years. You know what I mean? Or longer. So like that, I was worried about that, but then I just said fuck it, like, kind of just did it anyway. But I think that's probably a deterrent for a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, and I hate to like speak on his behalf. I know we were supposed to have Phil on here, but had a couple things come up. But if you were to look at like Phil and myself from like our blue belt days, we actually didn't train together back then. We started training like late in our blue belts as training partners, but before that we trained at different gyms. And if you were to look at our resumes back then, weren't that great. But we just competed and competed and competed and competed, and every time you compete, you just level up so much faster. And it might not be in a direct way. Like, it's not like you're going to show back up to the gym and you're like levels above, but like you get a good idea of like I mean, your holes get exploited.
Yeah.
You know, anything.
God, we're so immature for laughing
The
at
feet
that.
people are gonna love this. But no, but like like any hole in your game is gonna get exposed, right?
Why you gotta say it like that, bro?
All right, let's any
Weakness
flaw
in
or
your
weakness
game.
in your jiu-jitsu, your Brazilian jiu-jitsu game gets exposed. But we just leveled up so much faster because we figured out what was wrong.
Right.
Under pressure, and
Dun, dun,
it's one of the best
dun,
things
dun,
you can
dun,
do. And I think the gym culture too can greatly help that too, right?
Yeah.
We really pride ourselves on like how we do in competition at this gym, but it's also a self-defense gym, right? Like people are here to do stuff, but in the last few months we've had a really high influx of students just for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
And one of them I play golf with all the time, and I get to talk to him obviously like weekly, and I train with him. But one of the things was he was like, I never want to compete, have zero interest in it, could care less about it. He's been here for 4, 5, 6 months now, and just the other day he kind of approached me and he was like, hey, I want to compete.
Yeah.
You know,
So
it's
that's
just-
kind of how I was too.
Yeah, and I think it's just like good culture, right? Like
Yeah.
if you bring up competition as like this, like it's our gym versus that gym, and it's going to cause like a really negative reaction.
Agreed.
But if you're approaching competition to improve yourself and to improve your jiu-jitsu and help the people around you, I think it really it reaches to those people that normally wouldn't do it, and it's really cool to see someone like that I think they're going to actually do pretty good in competition.
I know you're talking about. Yeah, I think he'll do good too. Yeah, Pat. I've never rolled with him, but I've watched him roll before.
Yeah,
and Pat's like a tall, lengthy dude,
Yeah, he's got like the right, and he plays like a lot of like lapel stuff, and he's got a good game for it. So I think he's going to surprise himself in competition.
Yeah, I like Pat, man. I like that dude a lot, especially after the Christmas party. Dude showed up in those overalls, like, yeah, hey, man, you got to applaud a guy that could he's kind of reminds you like a class clown kind of dude, and he's able to laugh at himself. So you got to applaud that. Pat's a cool guy. So before we get out of here, let's talk about next weekend. So you're doing it's the Triumph Fight Academy, right?
Yeah, so it's 2 weekends from now.
It's 2
January
weekends.
27th.
Okay, got you.
I'm doing Triumph Fight Academy, Clash for Cash.
So
So Triumph Fight Academy is a gym out in Indian Land, South Carolina.
Which I never even knew that was a thing until the other day.
Really nice city too.
Yeah,
Really
it looks
city.
cool. It looks cool. I'm excited.
But they're a really cool gym. They do a lot of different things there. They do some MMA, they do sambo, they do jiu-jitsu, they do wrestling. They do just a lot of different things. And from the outside perspective, they're doing a lot of cool, interesting things for not just jiu-jitsu but the MMA community. They seem to be really progressive and wanting to help and build the community around them. So I do applaud them for that. I really think they're a really good gym. And they're doing a lot of good things, and I really appreciate that. So for them to put on this event, $3,000 cash prize, a belt that I'm going to take, it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, so man, I'm excited. We're going to document it. We're doing an embedded on Ethan here. It's going to be the first jiu-jitsu one that we've done. I thought it'd be cool, and plus it's not like a big trip. Like we're not going to Ohio or anything like that. It's gonna just go down there, take care of business, and come back the same day. Just kind of document everything and film it. Do a little embedded series on it and see, or a series, but an episode on it, and just have some fun. So I'm looking forward to it as well. Phil couldn't be here today, but Phil will be coaching for that one, and it's all going to take place in a big cage. So
we got some pro MMA fighters in there, some title holders in there. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So there should be a couple guys that, if they can get me to the cage, hopefully that's enough for them to.
Right, and that's a whole nother aspect that you have to work on too.
But I'm gonna pull guard, so it's gonna be okay. But I can out wrestle them too, I think. So I'm pretty excited.
Sweet. I'm excited to see if you talk some shit, man. Like you're not. I mean, you'll playfully talk shit, but I saw you posted the other day. You're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for the names.
I do.
So that's going to be interesting. I can't wait. and it's cool being able to go like to these things, even with like Jeremiah's fights. I'm not competing, so yeah, I get nervous because you guys are like my friends and I'm invested, right? But it's not like the nerves of competing, you know what I mean? So in a way, I have it easy. I can just sit back and film, you know. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, man. And
it's exciting for me. You know, this is kind of like I wouldn't say the first. I mean, I would say it's probably the first pro bracket I'm in. Right? It's a big purse. It's some up and coming names in there, and usually I'm not one to kind of talk my shit, but you know, I'm starting to enter into that realm of grappling that I want to be in, and where I've known I belong. And I think sometimes you got to talk your own little shit to build yourself up, and you know, it's the healthy ego. It's one thing if I was out here, you know, talking bad, but I'm just building up myself.
Well, yeah. Well, also, I mean, it's just like there's a difference between, you know, obviously you hear it all the time. There's a difference between being confident and cocky, right? But you kind of have to have a bit of both.
You gotta have
when you are a professional athlete. Like, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you are among the best. You know, it's kind of alludes back to what you said before, right? You look good, feel good, play good, right? Like, so if you feel good about yourself, you project that, then you know, obviously we all eat our words at some point or another in time. It happens, but I think you're doing it right, man. If you could talk a little shit, you know, maybe not cross a line with it, but, you know, talk some healthy shit.
Yeah, build myself up.
Yeah. Make it a
little
little more
scene.
Competitive, right? It'll bring more out of you, and them as well. And maybe you won't have as many of your holes exploited.
You know, we'll find out. We're gonna find out.
Well, at this point in time, usually I would tell DK to take us out. You want to take us out, man? Do you know what to say?
I don't, man.
Okay. First of all, if you enjoy this type of content, anything that's combat sports related, we kind of talk about it all. Today, you know, obviously strictly jiu-jitsu because we have Ethan here. Do us a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Mainly just subscribe. We do the embeddeds too on professional fighters, and we document the journey to the fight, the training, the weight cut, the fight itself. We'll be doing the same thing with Ethan, even though he doesn't have a weight cut for this. He's going to be severely underweight. But yeah, it's fine. It's still interesting to see these things. These aren't things that the normal person gets to see all the time. You just see the product. You see the fight itself. So that's one reason I really like doing these. We'll be pumping those out too. You know, obviously, if you want to see some things that we've already done, we have Austin Coleman, Jeremiah Scott, did, you know, bare knuckle, just had a fight also in Ohio not too long ago. You know, subscribe for all that good stuff. If you're new here, you know, we did an episode with Kenny Florian, who is a MMA and UFC legend. We've also had say what?
You know, he's a good friend of the gym. It's awesome.
Yeah. He'll be in here every now and then in training. And Francis Marshall, who is a UFC featherweight. We do have, I can't say it, and I'm not going to say it, but we do have some cool names that in the future, in the coming months, that we will have on here, which I'm super stoked for. And if I told you right now, you would be super stoked for, but I'm not going to say anything because I'm just not going to jinx it. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe if you're into this type of shit, and see you next time.